I have received a letter from the honourable member for North Sydney proposing that a definite matter of public importance be submitted to the House for discussion, namely the urgent need for this parliament to set aside political difference and do more to protect Australia's nature and biodiversity. I call upon those honourable members who approve of the proposed discussion to rise in their places, and I give the call to the honourable member for North Sydney.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. As the State of the Environment report declared in 2021, nature is in crisis, with the general outlook for our environment deteriorating. It showed Australia has one of the highest rates of species decline in the developed world, with more mammal species lost here than anywhere else. And we are the only developed country that is a deforestation hotspot. Yet 4 years on from that report, logging of native forests is still exempt from federal biodiversity approval processes in some parts of Australia, and hectares of threatened species habitat is routinely destroyed both by approved and unauthorised clearing. And while our legislation does not recognise it, climate change is absolutely compounding the damage from deforestation, invasive species, pollution and urban expansion, with species from Australia and New Zealand among the most at risk of extinction globally. As the 47th Parliament enters its final days, then it's little wonder that greater protection for nature is the call I hear most consistently from my community of North Sydney. Indeed, my office is frequently inundated by people across my electorate asking me and this parliament to do more to protect nature. Meanwhile, the sentiment is amplified when you look at the results of recent polls, with the Biodiversity Council poll showing nearly 9 in 10 Australians support stronger national nature laws, while 2 in 3 support the establishment of a national environmental standards. This is further supported by the results of a YouGov poll that showed 7 out of 10 voters want the government to do more to protect and restore nature. But fascinatingly, these sentiments are reflected consistently regardless of age or political allegiance. Yet after almost 3 years of discussion, development and debate, this parliament has failed to deliver on any of the ambitions, rightfully leaving our communities bitterly frustrated. Frustrated at the government, frustrated by the opposition and frustrated by this parliament for forgoing a once-in-a-generation opportunity to strengthen Australia's environmental framework. Frustrated that, according to media reports, a deal on the nature-positive reforms was scuttled at the 11th hour following political pressure from Western Australia's Premier. Frustrated that since the last federal election we've approved 10 new coal mines or expansions with 2,449 million tonnes of lifetime emissions, and frustrated because they, like me, recognise both the huge economic and nature-positive potential of the renewable energy transition. The transition to renewables presents a once-in-a-100-year opportunity to reset how we address environmental concerns, how we engage in community consultation and how we honour First Nations cultural heritage protection in a way that is fundamentally different to that of the fossil fuel and mining industry of the past. But none of this will be possible without stronger environmental laws and adequate funding. Australia has no lack of environmental expertise, but we certainly need more political ambition, commitment and financial support. We must halt biodiversity loss that is currently occurring both on land and in our oceans, and we must stop approving new coal and gas projects. As a parliament, we should have delivered this reform on Australia's nature laws as a national priority, including legislating an independent and well-resourced environmental protection agency. But in the absence of this outcome, I would argue this government must invest in nature repair and recovery, while the current opposition must be clear of their intentions in this space in the lead-up to the next election. Current federal government spending on protecting nature equates to just 0.1% of the total budget, and while funding has increased in recent years, it is nowhere near the level required to meet our commitments to protect 30% of Australia by 2030 and prevent native species extinctions. Scientists and conservation groups are urgently calling for a measly minimum, just 1% of the federal budget to be allocated towards nature protection. And the shocking thing is this would still be a significant increase in nature funding. And the money is there. According to the 30 by 30 Alliance, the federal government is currently spending 16 times the amount on subsidies for oil and gas production and consumption than it is on protecting biodiversity. And in this context, surely it is beyond time that we finally break with our fossil fuel reliance and redirect that investment towards nature protection. Everyone in this place could choose to set aside petty political point scoring to make nature a priority at the next election. But if they're unable to make that commitment, I call on all voters. In 2025, cast your vote like your kids' future depends on it, because it does. Thank you.